Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited for today's video. It is going to be all about products that I was wrong about. Perhaps I judged a book by their cover or came up with my own idea about these products, either one before I bought it or two off of like a first or second impression. And through using these products more, I have come to actually really enjoy these products, whereas initially I thought that I wouldn't like the product or thought that I didn't like the product, etc. So if you are interested in hearing about some products that I have changed my mind about for the better, this is all products that I thought I wasn't gonna like or thought that I didn't like, and I've changed my mind and now I do like them more than I initially thought. So if you are interested in hearing about 10 products I have changed my mind about for the better, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I would love if you would consider subscribing before you leave today. We are posting every single day throughout the rest of December, and we love project panning on this channel, makeup content in general, especially eyeshadow palettes. So if you love any of those things, I would love if you would join us. And other than that, let's just get into the video. So like I said in the intro, I have 10 products to discuss. 4 of them, I don't know why I'm showing my, like, I'm a teacher. 4 of them being eyeshadow palettes. So I'm just going to start with the eyeshadow palette category, and I'm going to start with this one right here. This is the Urban Decay Naked Honey, and this was like a judged a book by its cover kind of situation. So when I first saw the teaser pics for this when this released last year, I was like, okay, that looks like a really boring palette, not something I really need in my collection. And I've also just not been uber impressed with the majority of the Urban Decay eyeshadow palettes that I have tried within the last couple of years. The only one being an exception to that would be the Urban Decay Born to Run palette. And so I kind of just brushed this to the wayside. There were tons of good reviews coming out about this palette, and I still was like, no, I just don't feel like that one is for me. And then finally I decided that maybe this one would be the Urban Decay palette for me, and I just absolutely adore this palette. This is definitely a lot more pigmented than a lot of other Urban Decay Naked palettes that I've tried. I also purchased the Ultraviolet this year and pretty much immediately decluttered that because I was so unimpressed by it. But every single look that I've come up with this palette, I've been super happy with. I feel like the eyeshadows blend really nicely. They're really pigmented. They're really smooth and buttery and just super easy to work with. Yes, this is a neutral palette and you're gonna get neutral warm eyes with this, but this is a palette that I feel like I can always reach into if I just need something really quick and easy too. And I know that this palette is going to perform really nicely for me. I'm not going to be like questioning whether or not my eyeshadow look is going to turn out the way that I want it to, because I've never been let down when I've used this palette to create an eyeshadow look. So I'm really upset with myself that I waited so long to purchase this palette, and this is definitely something that immediately when this came into my life, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have waited so long to buy you. This next one is another one that I sort of judged a book by its cover in a way. I just felt like this didn't necessarily fit into my personal makeup preferences, and it is the Sugar Pill Mini Color Palette, the Fun Size palette. And I had seen a lot of some of my favorite YouTubers using this palette when this initially released, and I was like, yes, it looks really cute on them. They've created some really interesting and unique looks with this, but I don't reach into color pretty much ever, so like this palette just isn't the eyeshadow palette for me. However, this year I have come to start playing around with color more often, and I picked this up towards the beginning of this year, and I am so happy that I did. I absolutely love everything about this palette. I like that it's like pastel, but like vibrant pastel, so you're still gonna get color payoff from this. I love that it's a mini palette. I love smaller, more concise palettes. I feel like I have everything that I need in this, and I just absolutely love this palette. If you are someone who really likes neutral palettes, but you just want 1 or 2 colorful palettes in your collection in case you decide you're gonna do a colorful look one day, I would recommend checking this out. It's becoming harder to get this palette, but you can still get this on Beautylish, and I am so happy to have this in my collection. So definitely one that I didn't think I needed in my collection, one that I didn't think I was gonna like, but when it came into my collection, I was so happy with this one. The third eyeshadow palette is another one that, based on my experience with another palette from this brand, I didn't think I was gonna like this. I've talked about this a lot on my channel recently. Can you guys guess which palette I'm gonna talk about? It is the Lawless Baby One eyeshadow palette, and I was not a fan of the regular Lawless The One palette, the large eyeshadow palette. I purchased that earlier this year, and I was super underwhelmed by the quality of that eyeshadow palette, and I was so disappointed because I feel like the color story of that one is just like the perfect palette, especially for someone who maybe doesn't want a large eyeshadow palette collection but still wants options. I can't remember exactly how many shadow pans came in that palette, but it was perfect because it had both like browns and mauve tones, so you did have a range of options for the looks that you could create. And truly, if you just like needed one eyeshadow palette, hence the one, if you just needed one eyeshadow palette to kind of take with you and still give you options, the color story was spot on. It was just the quality, that the execution of the actual quality of the eyeshadows that just missed the mark for me. So when this became available on my Octoly store, I was really into mauve tones. I still am. Obviously, I'm wearing mauves on my eyes right now. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna see. I doubt I'm gonna like this because I just don't think the Lawless eyeshadow formula is very good, but I'm gonna see. I'm gonna give them a second chance, and I have not been able to put this eyeshadow palette down. My issue with the one eyeshadow palette was that a lot of the shadows were so dry, and I got instant hard pan on a lot of the matte shadows. The shimmers were okay. There were a couple that I really liked, and there was others that were just okay in my opinion, but it was really the matte formula that just did not impress me, and this is completely different. These shadows are still powdery, which I really don't mind. I don't mind kick up in my eyeshadows, but they blend really nicely together. They're that buttery smooth material that just really blends nicely together. I've had no issues with these shadows muddying up together, which is another issue I had with the one eyeshadow palette. I felt like I got a lot of muddiness when I tried it to blend different shadows together, and I have not had that issue with this palette. The shimmers in here, this one is more subtle. I actually have this one on my inner corner today, and then this one is more intense, and every single shade with the exception of the red one that I just don't use because I don't like red shadows, every single shade in this palette I get a ton of use out of, and I absolutely am in love with this eyeshadow palette. I think it's definitely worth the $25, and this is one that I wasn't expecting to like, but I was wrong. And then the fourth and final eyeshadow palette I want to talk about is one that upon first, second, and third impression I was like, I wish I didn't spend the $65 on this guy. But the more that I've used this, because this has been going in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project, the more that I've used this, the more I'm like, okay, I'm not getting the Pat McGrath special formula in this palette, but I still really like this palette. Once I was able to see past the fact that I wasn't getting any of the Pat McGrath special shadows in this palette, I really came to love this eyeshadow palette. Again, I've been getting more into mauves and pinks as well, but the shimmers in here are super intense and super metallic, which I can really appreciate. The only shade that is a little bit chunkier is this one right here. The mattes in this palette also blend really nicely together, although I do feel like, just for the way that I like to do my makeup, I do like to have one lighter matte shade to kind of pair with this palette. So usually I'm never reaching for just this palette alone. Usually I'm using this as a complementary palette, but I still really like this one. And this was on sale on the Sephora website for somewhere in the 30s recently. I don't necessarily know that I would recommend this for the full $65 price point, but on sale I really like this one and I would recommend it. Okay, so that brings me to 6 other products that at one point or another I decided weren't going to be right for me or that I didn't like, and I have since changed my mind about and decided that, oh, for once in my life I was wrong. Just kidding, I'm wrong all the time. I'm going to start with the ColourPop Super Shock shadows. I remember when the ColourPop Super Shock shadows were all the rage, and I purchased a bunch of them, and this was when I was first getting into makeup as well, and I purchased some matte shades. I didn't purchase any shimmer shades to begin with, which I feel like was my first mistake. And just due to the texture and due to me being a complete novice when it comes to eyeshadow, I was like, I don't know how to use these. Therefore, I don't get the hype around these and I don't like them. So it took me a long time to come around to the ColourPop Super Shock Shadow formula. And in fact, the only reason I really did was because they did a collaboration with Halo Top, which is an ice cream brand that I was obsessed with at one point. Therefore, I decided I didn't care that I didn't like the Super Shock Shadow formula. When they did the collaboration, I needed to buy at least one of the duos. I ended up buying 2, and both of the duos came with like their ultra metallic formula. So it was almost just like a really glittery lid topper, and I really, really enjoyed them for the purpose of a lid topper shade. And I have since gone on to purchase probably 10 to 12 since then. And most recently I picked up these two, which came in the collection, like the taupe palette collection, which have two of their OG shades, which are Ritz and Kush. These are beautiful. I absolutely love these. I also really enjoy the two that I picked up in the Little Ray of Sunshine collection, but I used to think that I absolutely hated the Super Shock Shadow formula, and honestly when it comes to the matte formula, it's just not my favorite formula to work with, but when it comes to just a beautiful lid topper, I'm a huge fan of the ColourPop Super Shock Shadows, so I was definitely wrong in the past about these. This is one that's a little bit embarrassing because I believe I've touched on this specific product in multiple videos talking about like products that I don't think are worth the money, products that I regret buying, etc. But I was wrong about this, and my makeup preferences have definitely changed quite significantly this year in that I've really come to like cream and liquid products, like cream and liquid blushes, bronzers, highlights, etc. So the Charlotte Tilbury Glowgasm Beauty Light Wand, I was very, very wrong about. I picked this up off of a recommendation from Kathleen Lights last year when I was not into cream and liquids, and I feel like I didn't like this because I was always covering it up with foundation or with whatever, and I just was not using it in the right way. I was trying to use this kind of as a blush too, and I've since come to realize that I like this more as a blush topper or even like a peachy highlighter. I think it's super beautiful that way. I was trying to finish this by the end of the year. I don't think I will do that, but this is one that I will absolutely repurchase this shade when I finish it because I love it so much. And I will also, or am also interested in picking up Pink Gasm, which is another shade in this line. So I was so wrong about these. These are one of my favorite cream blush or cream liquid blush or highlighting products in my collection, and I was really wrong about this one. This is a product that was kind of like a judge a book by the cover type of a product. So this is the Kylie Cosmetics blush. I have mine in the shade Close to Perfect, and the reason first of all, I don't purchase a lot from Kylie Cosmetics, not necessarily because I have anything against Kylie, but I just, like, she doesn't need my money, and I don't want to say her releases bore me because I feel like that's mean, and I don't want to be like super mean, but nothing just like really gets me super excited from her line. However, I eye her blushes all the time. I feel like I had heard her blushes weren't that pigmented, and at first I was like, oh, I don't want something that's not that pigmented, but me, who can go super heavy-handed with all of my cheek products, I feel like today is no exception to that. Went a little crazy today. We'll try and cover everything up with my hair. Sometimes it's good for people like me to have products that aren't as pigmented and are more buildable, so you don't get clown cheeks or a muddy face. So I have really come to like this blush. I also just really like the shade. I feel like it's a really nice neutral shade. So you can barely see the swatch of that, and you can either go super light with this or you can build it up, not to be like super intense, but you definitely can build it, which I really appreciate. And I'm definitely interested in picking up more of the Kylie blushes, as well as I want to try her bronzer now. So I was definitely wrong about these. I was quick to judge. I was quick to decide that it wasn't for me and my personal makeup preferences, but this has become one of my favorite blushes in my collection. Next, I have a bronzer. This is the Lawless bronzer, and mine came without a sticker, but I believe I have the lighter of the two shades. And when I first picked this up, I kind of picked this up on a whim, and I just wasn't uber impressed with it right away, but this past summer, I could not put this bronzer down. When I first got it, I was like, okay, I don't necessarily love the tone of this on me. And I don't know if it was because I was self-tanning more this summer, that I just like the way that it looked more against like my self-tan skin, which I really went over the top sometimes with the self-tanner. I do know that. But the formula on this is super soft as well. And this is another one that I feel like I can really sheer this out, or I can build it, and I think I had put this in products I regret buying videos as well in the past, and this is definitely one. I don't necessarily know this is one I would repurchase when I finish it, but I enjoy reaching for this a lot more than I initially thought. And this is one of the products that kind of sparked the idea of this video, because I was like, ooh, I've told you guys that I don't like this bronzer, and yet now I can't put it away. So I was definitely wrong about this. I definitely do enjoy this more than I thought I did in the beginning. Going back to a liquid product, I initially feel like I didn't like this product because I wasn't good at using this type of product, and this is the Iconic London Liquid Illuminator. I'm pretty sure at the beginning of the year I put this in a monthly makeup roundup and I said it was just fine. I think that this is more than just fine. I actually really like this. This is one of my favorite highlighter formulas in my collection. The way that I like to best apply this is not to go directly onto my face, but I will just take this and then dot it onto my hand, the tiniest amount of product. Then I'll pick it up on my finger and then I'll tap it on to my cheeks, because this is a very, very intense liquid illuminator. A little bit goes a very long way, but I really enjoy using this, especially when I'm doing reverse foundation. So I put all my cream products on and then I go over it with a really sheer foundation. Because this is so intense, I feel like it just gives this very beautiful, in the middle of like not too intense but also intense, just like lit from within, beautiful glow. I'm just a huge fan of this, and I was definitely wrong to say that this was just okay, because this is something I don't think I'll ever be able to go through, but if I did, I would repurchase. And I am interested in picking up the pinker version of this, because I have enjoyed this one so much this year. And then the final product that I have to talk about is the Beauty Bakery Better Not Bitter Flour Powder. When I first started using this, I was like, this is way too heavy. I really don't like this. I'll somehow find a way to finish this up, but I'm definitely not going to pick this up again after I use this or after I finish this. However, I have not been able to stop reaching for this either. So I do like to use this to set underneath my eyes. However, I usually don't let this sit and bake underneath my eyes, because I just never like the look of that for me and my drier under eyes. But when I am trying to like clean up my bronzer, I absolutely adore this powder to just lay down, like cut where I want to like carve out, and then I just let it sit there until I'm done with my makeup. And I also find that this powder does a really nice job, again, if you kind of bake or let it sit there for a while, like around like this area where I would be wearing my mask. I've noticed a huge difference in how much longer my makeup lasts while wearing a mask using this powder. So I do still feel like this is a really heavy powder. If you have oily skin, you would probably really like this. If you have dry skin, just beware, it is heavy, but with enough spray. And if you're just careful, and if you know your face is going to be covered by a mask anyway, and you just want your makeup to last a really long time, I do recommend this. This is something that I would repurchase when I finish. I like this better than the like Laura Mercier Flawless whatever powder. This doesn't look as cakey as that one does. Again, this is still heavy. I just want to preface this by saying it's still heavy, but I was like a little bit concerned I was going to even be able to use this up when I first got it, and now I'm like, okay, I will repurchase this when I use it. Maybe if the masking days, like if wearing a mask, if those days ever come to an end, who knows, maybe then I wouldn't repurchase this, because I wouldn't be looking for as heavy of a powder. But right now I have been absolutely loving this. I haven't been able to put this away. I've like put it away from my Shop My Stash, and then like a day later I'm like, actually I really want the Beauty Bakery powder, so I'm just gonna bring that back into my acrylic organizers. So I definitely was wrong off my initial judgment of this powder. And after that, those are the 10 products that my initial reaction, my gut instinct was indeed wrong about. We're all wrong sometimes, right? I would love to hear from you guys in the comments below about some products that maybe you were too quick to judge, or maybe you've changed your mind about in the opposite way. Leave me a comment down below and let me know. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel, sticking around to watch today's video, all the things. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in tomorrow's video. Bye.